Hey everybody, it's Matthew of Mr. Domestic. This video is going to show you how to do machine binding the easy way. I love me some machine binding, and I definitely do not belong to the camp that feels that a good quilt is only a quilt if you hand bind it. That's good and all, but I like being done. So in this video, I'm going to do it on a small 10.5 by 10.5 pillow form to show you essentially how to bind the entire perimeter of any project despite the size. So if you're interested in learning how to do machine binding the easy way, then before we get into the content, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and anytime you're feeling it, give me the thumbs up. Now let's get ready to have some fun. So this video is focusing on binding made easy, which is probably how I bind about 90–95% of my projects, just because it's quick and it gets the job done and it's durable and I like to finish my projects. But for this video, I have two 10-inch pillow forms that I'm going to use as the project because it's easier for y'all to see, and you'll be able to apply this technique to any scale of project, whether it's 10 inches or 10 feet. And I have my bias tape cut out for the project and folded that I'll go over in a second. But before then, I wanted to explain the difference between a bias cut and a straight cut for those who are new to binding. That bias is the traditional way that people cut their binding because there's some stretch to it. You cut it essentially at a 45-degree angle from the fabric and it creates stretch. See here? Ooh, I'm stretching it to where there's more give and it's easier to manipulate around any of your projects that you're working on. This is a straight cut, and as you can see, there's no stretch here. And for most of my projects, honestly, I use a straight cut because my fabric, when it comes with the fabric, I seldom will have a full yard to create bias binding, so I find looks more aesthetic whenever I use this. However, this is the traditional way. So if you hear people talking about bias tape, this is what they're talking about. However, for the video, I'm also going to call this bias tape just to keep the terminology similar, even though this isn't technically cut on the bias. So now that we have that, I'm going to take this and this over to my sewing machine to show you the first steps in binding any size project. And just to point this out one more time, the length of the strip, however long you need it, I folded in the midline all the way through. And this is my standard way of binding my project. So now we're gonna head over to my sewing machine. Okay, so I have brought my project and my bias tape over to Felicia, which is the name of my sewing machine if you don't know. And I'm gonna set my needle in the center. It's just your preference, but just to use it as a guideline. And for this technique, you're gonna flip it over to the back, right? Because this is entirely machine binding. And you're gonna, whatever the size of your project, for this one it's 10 inches, I'm going to start sewing probably in the last half of my project, because you know that there is going to be a seam here whenever you join the two ends, and you don't want it to be toward the corner. So make sure to start it and leave some excess here so you can connect the two and have the raw edges go together. So the raw edge of the fold is going to go against the raw edge on the back of your project. Then I'll just take this over to my machine, and I always will have to test this out first. I would love to give you a standard measurement, but it depends on the thickness of your project as to how much will fold over. So I will test this out. And for this project, I'm using 2-inch width tape that I folded over. For my quilting projects, the standard size that I use is 2.5 width, and fold that over. So I'm just gonna test this. I'll do a basting stitch, so I'm gonna extend the length to 5 millimeters, and I'm just gonna go a little bit. And I'm gonna cut this, and I'm going against the edge of my machine just for now, just to see. And then I will flip this over, and what I want this lip right here to do is to cover that stitch line. And if it just barely covers the stitch line, then you know you're good to go. And as you can see, it extends a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to stitch a little bit more. I think this one is going to work. So once again, I will fold it over the front, and it's perfect. Perfecto. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch, go back to standard stitch length all the way around. Okay. And when you get close to the corner, when you're here, don't go all the way to the end, then lift the foot and pivot. And then you're going to sew towards the corner. And then lift up your foot, lift up your needle, pull it out. It will all correct itself once you start sewing again. And then here, you're going to fold this over like this and fold it back down. And then with that folded, you just start sewing on the other side. So now I'm stitching that entire length. And then I'm gonna keep showing you this in real time so that you can really see it. You got to the corner? And if this is not a perfect 45-degree angle, it's totally fine. I'm not big on perfection. And lift the foot, lift the needle, and you are going to fold it at a 45-degree angle going away from you, as so, and then fold it a straight fold on this edge to where it definitely goes inside of the square, and then lay it down edge on edge right here. And then you're going to stitch again up this. And I'm going to fast forward through the rest of this and get you to the joining part so that you can see that. Okay, now I'm getting to where there's a gap here, and there's definitely enough extra here to be able to join it. And then this is one time where I will backstitch. Where's the button? Where's the button? There you are. Just so that this seam doesn't open up. And then I cut it. And then here, there's enough to where you don't have to worry about any of the selvage getting in there. And this is a trick that I do just so that I know how to measure it, because we're going to sew this on the diagonal instead of sewing it straight across. It just looks better and it makes this overall a stronger piece of binding. So I'm matching these up right here, and then I fold this on a 45 like this, like so. And then that creates enough here, and then I will snip this off. And then I know it's exactly what I need right here to finish up my binding. And then this, I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to show you a cleaner way, but I don't iron this. I don't do any of that extra stuff. I'm all about just finishing it. So I folded it to where it's going to sew on a diagonal, and then I'll take one corner, and don't worry y'all, after this I'm going to show you it cleaner. But I just want you to show you in real time how I do it, because I'm all about as easy as possible. And as soon as I catch that corner on the machine, then I straighten this out to make sure that this is all straight. And then afterwards the iron is going to make it. And then I just sew on the diagonal and cut it. Haha! And see, that is perfect, the perfect amount. Now after this, I am going to trim off the extra, iron it, and then come back and finish stitching this. I won't show you that in real time. And then over on my cutting board, I'll show you what I do for the next step. So I am popping back in for a PSA on 1, closing the loop of the binding, and 2, attaching multiple lengths of binding. So I'm gonna slow it down here. I've taken some still pictures for you to see it in slow motion in case that was some fast-paced fabric ninja action that you couldn't follow. So here are 2 strips lengthwise that you're going to connect, and you fold one on top of the other at a right angle, and then you're going to draw with a chalk line, whatever, a pencil on that corner so you have that line to follow when you take it over to your sewing machine, and then you're going to stitch across that line. And then trim off the excess, leaving maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and press that open if you're able to. But if you press to the side, it's totally fine. And then fold it over and press it and iron it, and you're good to go. Now I have my bound piece, and I brought it over to, I'm gonna say my cutting mat, but really my ironing board. And what I am going to do is glue baste and press before I sew the front. And I have my iron, my steam iron set on high heat, high steam. Because that's just how I like to do things. And what I'm doing is I am pressing this crease, essentially. It doesn't matter what this looks like, because you're gonna fold it over and it gets maneuvered along the way. So I am just essentially pressing that as flat as possible, just to ensure that I get the most bang for my buck when I flip it over. So now I'm gonna bring it over to the front and just tuck those corners in there, like that. Tuck them in there. They're going to fit right in there like a glove, like a little pocket loving on a corner. And so now these are all secure. And then this is where the glue comes in. And I'm going to use just plain old standard Elmer's school glue. I got this microfine tip from Chrissy Fincher of Purple Daisies, and they are amazing. I know they custom make it. It comes with 2 when you order it, but this allows you to use stuff that your kid has at home, and that's awesome. And this is what I do. I'm all about glue basting before. You don't really use a lot of glue so it doesn't gum up your machine. And I'll press this a little bit just to flatten it. And then I'm just gonna put a little line just right here. I know it's going inside, and you're not gonna be able to see the glue, and it's so fine it's not gonna gum up your machine. And then I'm just gonna heat set this in place with my iron. And by heat setting it, I don't have to worry about clips or pins or any of that jazz whenever I take this over to my sewing machine. All I need to make sure is that my stitch line is right here, and it looks like my binding is on fleek. Yeah, I said on fleek, folks. You can totally make fun of me. I don't seriously use that word. And then I have that, and then I just go around it. And so here, you see that corner. It's kind of tiny here, but then here, I'll probably, yeah, go ahead and just do the corner first. Just here. And then I'm just gonna get this started, because this is the part that I want to be pretty. And this is where I bring in a pin, and I just use this pin right here on the corner to push it down, and then I pull it out before I set it. And that just ensures that the fabric gets all the way down to the bottom before you secure the fold. Now that that fold, look at how crisp that fold is. Now that that fold is good, I'm gonna go ahead and glue bind, or glue baste the rest of this line. And I'll do this line, and then I'll do one more corner in real time so that you can see it. But this has saved me so much time and so much hassle. Because a lot of times what I would do when I got over to my sewing machine is I wouldn't even pin or clip, and then my binding would look totally janky, and nobody wants janky binding, even if you're machine binding. So look at that, it's crisp. So now all you have to do is focus on getting it on that line. And now one more corner right here. And just so you know, if there's any stragglies that come through here, like come through the binding, you can pick it out like afterwards. It's no big deal. So once again, I'm taking the glue, just putting a little dollop right here, and then right here. And this might be the spot where I use a little bit extra glue just to really make sure that this corner is set. And then, yes, this is gonna be a pretty corner. Okay, then heat set it. I still have the steam and the heat going. And then Ooh, that is a pretty corner. So now I'm gonna speed the rest of this up so you don't have to see it in real time. And then we'll get excited and do some top stitching. So now I'm back over at Felicia, and all I have left to do is to top stitch this binding in place. And one thing that I have done, and just make sure to do it, because these are the stitches you're going to be able to see. Make sure that you have a top stitch that's going to look cute on the front, and whatever you have on the bobbin, you want to make sure that it looks cute on the back, because you're also going to be seeing that stitch. And more often than not, the stitch is going to land on the fabric, not on the binding. But if you found one that looks cute on both, just in case it wavers a little bit depending on your stitch, then that's the way to go. So I'm just gonna find a place to start. I'm gonna lower my foot. And I don't use an edge foot because most of the time I don't know where it is because my room is a mess, but I like to get as close as I can and to use my eyes. Just makes me feel young and youthful that I can still do it. So now I'm just gonna edge stitch. I'll probably go a little bit slower, and I'm gonna get you through one corner so that you can see it in real time. And in this, I am using a denim needle because I know that the denim needle is gonna perforate all of these layers. And I even use a denim needle whenever I bind my traditional quilts, just because it's a lot of layers and I wanted to get through and not skip any stitches. So, okay, I am almost to the corner. And right when it hits that seam, that fold that you did right here, as soon as it hits that, then stop. Then lift your foot and then rotate it. And then you're good to go the other way. And then you just top stitch here and work through all of the corners until you get back over there. And that's what I'm gonna do now. Now I have come to the end. And then all I have left to do here, I'm not gonna cut it with my machine. I'm gonna lift this up, lift the needle, and cut this with some scissors. All I have left is to hide this thread in the binding, but I wanted to show you. Ooh, see, it looks bombastic on the front, but then you go to the back. Ooh, see, it got it on there. And you'll be able to see the threads here. So wow, this looks really cool. So this is binding made easy. So now you can do machine binding on any project the easy way. All you gotta do is grab yourself some bias tape and get ready to have your own kind of fun and be done with your project. Yay! So if you enjoyed this, got some tips or tricks or a laugh or two, then make sure to give it the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Keep it positive, y'all. Mr. Domestic out. Thanks for watching my video. You can subscribe on the right, just click on my face and watch some of my other videos on the left.